So this is a basic sleeve block which we are going to be using to draft that very pattern of this sleeve, as you can see on the screen. So the technique is just the back all to where the front armhole is have to be the front, then from the front all to where the back armhole is happens to be the back. Do you understand? From the very mark where I give, yes, that's just it. So I'll be tracing out the back now into a fresh pattern paper just so I can separate it. I'll be tracing out the back now to a fresh pattern paper just so I can separate it from this very point of the front, like I was trying to explain earlier. From this very point of this front where I'm going to stop now, all through where the back armhole is, that is your back. Okay, it's the back because of the armhole. The armhole is full, that's why it is the back, because that's where we are going to attach to the bodies. Now I decided to extend it to the armhole, extend the side sleeve to the armhole. And also don't forget to mark your center, because you'll be needing it very well when you're making your stitches, when you're sewing. Okay, so just mark the center, then you connect every line possible to this fresh pattern piece, and also label and put your notches where necessary, especially at the center front. Put your notch at the center front because you'll be needing it very much. So having done that, now I'm drawing out the lines so that it's very clear and visible. Okay, then having done this, I'll go over to the other paper and be cutting out the front part of this sleeve. Label properly so that you do not get confused as you're sewing, because this very pattern drafting is very technical, so you have to label to make your work easier for you. So I'm cutting it out now. I'm cutting every excess out so I can have just a back sleeve pattern. So having cut that out, I'm going to go ahead and label my side sleeve back. Okay, so I don't get confused when I'm making use of this pattern. So I also go to the other pattern paper and I'll be cutting out for my front. Just like I said, wherever the armhole is full, that is where you label either front or back. Since the front armhole is full, that particular side happens to be my front. I also have to extend the line down to the elbow, that is same with the back also. So now I'm going to be cutting out my front part of the sleeve. Having cut this out, now we have two pieces for the sleeve. I'm trying to match both centers together, and this is the result I came out with. If you want a basic petal sleeve, you're just going to stop here, but for this tutorial we don't want a basic petal sleeve. I also noticed that the center where the petal crossed is too low, so I decided to go up by 5 inch. I decided to measure from the center seam down to 5-inch mark where his cap sleeve starts, 5 inches. So I want that I want it to stop where the cap sleeve is, so I had to measure from the tip of the center of the sleeve down to 5 inches, and from there I'll be making my petal sleeve curve. The reason why I'm doing this, I don't really want that center of the sleeve to be too down. I want the opening to kind of be visible, just like the one on the screen. But you can play around with this. You can want yours to be wherever it is. It's not a standard. Okay, you can play around with this. You can come as low as you want, just don't put it too high so that you don't go about showing all your sleeves or your arm rather. So now I'm cutting it off so I can have the desired effect that I want for that petal crossing. Like I said, it's not a standard. So I'm also going to be checking it out, matching the center of both sleeves together. You can see the opening now is a bit wider than before. So I'm going to be working with this particular pattern piece. So having done this now, I'm going to go ahead to slash and spread I'm going to go ahead to slash and spread. I'm slashing and spreading just because it's a flared sleeve. We need that flared effect. So I'm going to slash and spread the both patterns, okay? I'm drawing a guideline where I'm going to be cutting to and not through. Also, take note of your centerpiece. Make sure your centerpiece, you take note and you label it properly as your centerpiece. It's also going to guide you during the slash and spread. So now I've slashed. As you can see, my centerpiece, I held it in place. I did not cut anything from the centerpiece. It's in place. I only had to slash the other side. Now I'm going to be cutting exactly according to the sleeve pattern from the original sleeve. Okay, I'm going to be cutting according to the pattern that I have from the original sleeve before taking it out. Let your center sleeve be in place. Do not slash your center sleeve. The center sleeve is like a green line, so do not slash it. I'm cutting exactly with the shape of the sleeve that I just slashed, especially the top. This top has to be also same fitting of the armhole. I only slashed the down part of it. The part which fits into the armhole has to be the same when you put it into the armhole. I only slashed where I only needed fullness was the part after the armhole. The armhole is not going to be gathered, so I had to slash and spread. I cut to and not through. Label also the center, very necessary, and every other part that you'd be needing so that you don't get confused. I've labeled my back. I'm also labeling my side back sleeve. Okay, so this is very necessary so that you do not get confused. And this is what we have after we've slashed and spread. I've also done the same thing now to the front piece of this sleeve. I've also done the same thing to the front piece of the sleeve after labeling the center and everything. Now I'm trying to true it. As you can see, the crossing and the petal effect of the sleeve. So having done this now, I'm doing the front and the back pattern just to make sure that the differences are not much or zero. Definitely there are going to be differences because your back and your front arm sleeve are not the same, but let the difference not be so much. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm truing it so the differences are not so much, and I'm making sure that the parts are aligned together. Okay, make sure that the parts are aligned together. That's just what I'm doing here. So having done that and having seen that it's cool, it's okay, it's what I'm doing, like the result, it's not that very bad. The sleeves are all aligned together. So having done that, I'm going to be spreading apart. I'm going to cut through for added fullness because of the gathered at the center of the sleeve. Because of the gather at the center of the sleeve, I'm going to be adding fullness to this very particular sleeve so as to get that gathered effect at the center of the sleeve. So now I've marked out the distance apart I want from the center of my sleeve using 1 inch on both sides. I'm going to add fullness to this very particular detail, just as you can see me doing now. I've gotten a fresh pattern piece and I'm going to be adding fullness to these very lines that I drew also. So cutting from my center front, cutting from the center of the sleeve, making a line there just so I know that this is my center, because that's where I'm going to start adding the fullness from, and that's where my gather is going to be prominent at. I actually slashed this place before, but I don't want much fullness, so I had to pin it. I had to tape it back. Yes, I had to tape it back. I don't want the fullness to be that much. If you want yours to be so much, you can gather as much as you want. Okay, you can gather as much as you want, but I just want something moderate. You can gather as much as you want. Also, the slash and spread, you can spread as much as you want for your flared sleeve. As much as you want, you can spread. So having done this now, I've added fullness to this sleeve, and this fullness I added is where the gather is going to be for the sleeve. Okay, so having done this now, I'm going to cut out this pattern using also the very particular shape of the pattern that I used to add fullness to it. Okay, just so it comes out nice. Okay, so same thing that I do it to the front piece, I'm also going to do the back piece. Same thing that I did to the front, I've also done to the back of the sleeve. So I haven't done this now. This is my backs, this is my center front where it's going to be gathered for the front sleeve. Please be sure you label, because the labeling will be very important and it's going to help you so that you don't get confused and make mistake while sewing. Label and notch on your fabric. Notch, this is what I do. For the front I add just a notch, or I don't notch at all. For the back, 2 notches. Then for other prominent places, 3 notches, so that you just know which is which. Okay, so you just notch the way you'll be able to understand which is which, so you don't get confused while sewing it. So I haven't gathered this very particular place now. Also, I'm going to be gathering this place, but I want to cut this very part on another color of pattern paper, so that we actually see the details of what the sleeve looks like. So I've gone ahead to cut this on another color of paper. I've gone ahead to on a white paper, and also I'm labeling. Also the labeling, I'm emphasizing much on it. It's very, very important. Like, I can't over you can't just say you over labeled. Keep labeling so that you don't get confused. So having done that now, I've labeled properly on another color of paper. I'm going to be gathering the part which is supposed to be gathered. Whatever gather you're making should arrive at your center front. Okay, whatever gather you're making should arrive at the center front, because that's where we want the gather to be. So you have to gather and let it arrive at the center front, just like so. The gather has to arrive at the center front also. On both sides, I have to gather and let it arrive at the center front. So I'm going to be taping this down now. If you're sewing with your sewing machine, you just stitch this down first. Stitch down the gather first. So I'm going to be taping this down now. Everything I'm doing here is same with a fabric. Everything is same with a fabric. Okay, it's same when you're doing it with a fabric. So you have to tape this down now. Having sewn this down, okay, let me use sew so that you don't say tape. Having sewn this down, you have the 2 pieces now, the front and the back. So this is what you're going to do. Let the center seams align. Let the center of the both sleeves align the center of the both sleeves together, and sew from there. Okay, when you've aligned it, you stitch from there. If you can use a pin to hold this together before you sew. Okay, you can use a pin to hold it together. So now you've aligned it. Then from there, you can now start aligning the rest of the sleeve together, because you're going to use this to form a sleeve that you'll be joining to one part of the bodice. Okay, so now just exactly what I'm doing, you're going to be aligning it to use it to form a sleeve that you will join to one part of the bodice. Okay, so that's what I'm doing now. You can use a pin to pin this down. Then after pinning it down, you can also sew it your sewing machine. So that's what I've gone ahead to do now. This very particular part that is the side sleeve, you'll be stitching it down. Okay, this is the side, the part that fits into, how do I call it? Okay, this is the side of the sleeve, the side of the sleeve. Okay, so you have to sew it down. The side of the sleeve where you normally have your seam, where you sew whenever you're making a sleeve. So it's still the same. This is the side of that sleeve where you sew, whenever you normally sew a sleeve, is that side where you sew that lays on the side of your bodice. Okay, side sleeve. Okay, so having done that, this opening is where you're attaching to the armhole. This opening is where you're attaching to the armhole. So when you attach it to the armhole, you're going to also be taking note of the center of the sleeve, and when you attach it to the armhole, you should be having that petal effect coming out at the very center of your arm. Okay, so having done that now, I went ahead to fit this into my mannequin. Though my mannequin and this particular measurement are not same, the mannequin is quite bigger than the measurement I used here. So this is, you should be having something like this.